All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us during the Lytham Partners Fall 2022 Investor Conference. My name is Robert Blum, Managing Partner of Lytham Partners, and during this fireside chat, we welcome SenesTech, ticker of SNES on the NASDAQ, and their Chief Executive Officer, Ken Siegel, and Chief Financial Officer, Tom Chesterman. We're going to dive into questions here in just a moment, but want to remind everyone that management is available for one-on-one meetings this week at the conference. If you've not already signed up, you can send me an email. That's Blum, B-L-U-M, at lythampartners.com, or visit the website, lythampartners.com/virtual. There's a one-on-one meeting request button there. Click on it. We'll get you all taken care of. So, Ken and Tom, welcome.
Thanks, Robert. Good to be here.
So let's start off. You both joined us for a fireside chat in December of last year. For those of you that may have missed it, maybe please provide a brief overview on the company and your respective backgrounds.
Sure. We're commercializing what we think is a revolutionary product for pest control, starting with rats, that dramatically reduces rat population through birth control. So as Tom likes to say, we do birth control for rats. The product, which is ContraPest, is non-toxic. It doesn't hurt any other species, such as humans, pets, predatory hawks, etc. So very environmentally responsible, very safe. And it addresses the key area of pest control that really has been a flaw for as long as pest control is in existence, and that is the birth rate. I mean, everything else has been focused really on death, but in order to effectively manage pests, you really have to manage reproduction. And the reason for that, for example, dealing with rats is rats are incredibly prolific, and a base pair of rats can essentially have 15,000 descendants in the course of a year. So literally, you cannot kill them fast enough to offset that birth rate. And we think we really have an extraordinary breakthrough in finally being able to deal with reproduction and providing an effective, sustainable solution to pest control.
Since we last spoke, again, December of last year, you've since launched the Elevate bait system. Help the audience understand what Elevate is and the opportunity to grow the ContraPest franchise as a whole as a result of it.
Sure. Elevate, in many ways, is a breakthrough product. One of the biggest problems right now with rodents, particularly rats, is roof rats, rats that exist and live above ground. And until the launch of Elevate, there really was no product that was capable of getting to those rats where they live, literally to be able to be deployed above ground. So Elevate is a unique bait station, a unique baiting system that can mount in all sorts of different ways, but really gets to roof rats where they exist. And again, there's been no other pest control technology that's been able to do that. So as opposed to us attempting to make our way in more conventional areas, we now have a product that is unique and specifically tailored to one of the most significantly growing problems in the United States, and that's roof rats.
Gotcha. Now, you market your product through both a direct sales force as well as online. Maybe talk a bit about the opportunity within that e-commerce segment, and in particular, maybe talk a bit about Operation Rat Race, that campaign, and some of the metrics to drive growth you've seen as a result of it.
Absolutely. So e-commerce has been a critical part of our commercialization strategy really since inception a couple of years ago. And we're doing it in a couple of different ways. Way number one, really, we borrowed from the pharmaceutical industry and using e-commerce, using awareness to essentially drive consumer demand, both through our proprietary websites and also to ask pest management professionals and others to begin to deploy the product. What we decided to do to differentiate ourselves from the mainstream industry is we launched a commercial concept, which we call Operation Rat Race, which takes a little bit of an edgy, humorous approach to to pest control on the product, and we market really under this broader banner of safe rat sex. And it's been, very well received by the community, both, the professional community and consumers. And it's driving, as I mentioned, both awareness as well as purchasing and adoption through our website. Impressions and website visits, as well as click-throughs, continue to grow every day, literally, but certainly every quarter. And we continue to invest in it. At the same time, we're investing in conventional media. We have been doing print. We've actually done some outdoor. People, particularly in California, have seen, two rats, I guess, literally in love, but pointing about safe rat sex. And we monitor it closely. So part of it is we monitor in terms of impressions, we monitor in terms of click-throughs, but most, importantly, looking over at my CFO is, we're monitoring cost per acquisition. So literally e-commerce has grown about 264% year over year. And at the same time, we've dramatically reduced the cost of each individual customer acquisition. So very excited about it. It's been very, very important, very significant to us.
All right. Now, I think you sort of briefly touched on the agricultural market, the added opportunity that comes as a result of launching Elevate. Another key market for you guys is zoos and sanctuaries. Why is that an attractive market for the company, and what sort of achievements have you made since maybe we last spoke in December?
So zoos and sanctuaries, as Tom will point out, is a smaller market, but frankly, it's very influential. It's also one in which there is a natural aversion to conventional methods. They don't like using poisons. They don't like anything that's going to put their other species, the animals that they're protecting, at risk. So ContraPest is a natural for them, and one that, we're seeing a very high level of adoption. As of the end of last quarter, we have over 70 zoos and sanctuaries that are active purchasers of the product. And they're not only are they reporting, great results in terms of the reduction of the rodent population, but they're also talking about significant improvements in the health and survival of the animals that they're there to protect. One of the zoos that we're working with, it's one of the 5 biggest in the United States, had a significant problem in their aviary, in their free flight aviary, in which rats had gotten in and they were unable to get them out. And these rats literally were preying on the eggs and, the baby birds that were endangered species. And since ContraPest was introduced for the first time, certainly in 3 years, they're actually beginning to see these rare and endangered birds begin to reproduce. They're extraordinarily excited. And that level of excitement is carrying through to the broader, zoo and sanctuary industry. But also think about it. You have the veterinarians that are associated with the zoos and sanctuaries. You have the very influential people that are on their boards. You have their guests, their visitors. So it becomes a natural way for us to very quickly expand awareness and adoption of the product across other segments.
Sort of dovetailing that a little bit as it relates to the environmentally friendly option, if you will, for customers. Are you seeing any opportunities from, let's call it, eco-minded corporations to adopt ContraPest?
We are. And it's interesting. I mean, many of, essentially any company now that is looking to attract younger people, Gen Z, for example, they're very focused on, the critical things of this era. And one of them certainly is sustainability. So we're beginning to see adoption, certainly within the tech industry. One of the biggest tech players in the world is now deploying us at a couple of their campuses and are beginning to work on additional expansions. So we think as the product becomes, the awareness of the product becomes broader, as we begin to get these companies to begin talking about the fact that they're deploying the product, we think it's going to naturally, grow and expand. But the key piece of this thing is, as they really want to walk the walk on sustainability, they can't be, just blithely deploying poison. And so the ability to sit there and say, we have a responsible way of controlling pests, resonates very well with their employees. very well with their consumers. And, we think it's just a natural way for us to continue to expand in that segment.
All right. Seems like a natural sort of fit for many municipalities. Let's dive into that a little bit more. Talk about maybe some of the traction within this market and maybe some examples of deployments.
So the key piece of this thing, and I know many people that are watching this have certainly seen it. With the pandemic, you saw essentially an explosion of rat sightings in all the major cities, and part of that was really to do with the fact that by virtue of businesses being shut down, by retail areas, by restaurants being shut down, not just that the rats began to proliferate, but they began to move out of their traditional habitats and be more broadly seen in residential areas and other areas where people are located. And notwithstanding aggressive lethal campaigns, poisoning campaigns, the populations just continue to expand. So we spent the better part of a year deploying across Washington, D.C. We've talked about this with your listeners in the past, but we were able to achieve in Washington, D.C. a 94 to 98% reduction in the rodent populations, where we were deploying. And that, the critical piece of this thing, as opposed to it simply being a temporary knockdown, which is what you tend to see with poison, with contrapest, because it's preventing reproduction, because it's preventing incremental births, the population declines. And the critical piece of this thing is it stays down. So, very exciting results came out of DC. What we're now seeing is, particularly in the coastal cities, both on the East Coast and the West Coast, expanding amounts of deployment. So we're seeing a significant amount of interest in Metro Boston, in the New England area. Great interest now in California. San Francisco has a significant deployment in their parks and restaurant areas. We're now beginning to deploy in Los Angeles, and we're beginning to make our way, more also inland. So we have deployments now in Ohio. We have a significant deployment in Connecticut, and each of this is beginning to build on each other. We also have one that hopefully we'll be able to talk about in a few weeks, a major deployment again in a West Coast city. And the interesting piece of this thing is they've been deploying without our assistance. Basically, they've just deployed the product. And the results that we're getting from them right now have been extraordinary. And we're looking for them to be able to publish that in the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. We've talked about different segments you're addressing, right? Agriculture, zoos, e-commerce customers, municipalities. From a big picture perspective, talk about the size of the market opportunity here.
Let me turn that one over to Tom. If it has to do with numbers, he doesn't like me talking about them anyway.
So this is one of those things where we got it's a very broad term, market opportunity, but let me break it down a little bit. I mean, from the highest level, market studies indicate that we in the U.S. spend in excess of $1 billion on rodenticides, and then even more on the other products and services that go around rodent control. Within that, though, there are many segments and approaches to penetration. We've studied and chosen a few segments that we've already mentioned that we believe are the most immediately accessible. The first one and the biggest one is what we refer to as the grain vector. Anywhere in agriculture where there is grain, there are probably rats looking to eat it. And so we're talking protein production, grain storage, transportation. These are all an area where the problem is real and very much economic, and where contrapest has proven to be a cost-effective tool. So looking at these areas and all the numbers of farms, the number of animals, et cetera, we estimate that this addressable market is in excess of 200 million by itself. And this is also one where Elevate particularly can really add and make a difference, because there hasn't been a really viable solution to roof rats that PMPs or pest management professionals can use. The second market that we mentioned earlier was zoos and sanctuaries. It is a smaller economic opportunity, maybe 25 million when you also include veterinary clinics, but it's one that's very and highly influential. I mean, who better to recommend an approach to animal population management than experts in everything animal, zoos and sanctuaries? The third segment that we also mentioned was government agencies, or what we call municipalities. This is a more complicated market to address, as there are political and social issues in their decision making. It's not as much economic. So as a financial person, it's a little bit suspect to me whenever I have to rely on politicians. But it is big enough that it's worth pursuing. This market is certainly worth pursuing. And there's lots of other segments and approaches, but these are the ones where we're spending our limited resources to attack.
Perfect. Let's dive into some of the numbers here. You recently reported another quarter of record revenues in the second quarter here. Provide everyone with a bit of an update on the traction you're seeing within the business.
So sales continue to accelerate. As you mentioned, Robert, we're seeing great traction in e-commerce that continues to grow significantly quarter over quarter. What we're really excited about is, Elevate launched late in Q2, and we think that's going to be a critical accelerator in growth going forward. We're now having our first real full quarter beginning to market it. We're still fine tuning the marketing strategy, but e-commerce continues to accelerate. Field sales are accelerating. We're heading towards hopefully that breakthrough period in which we see really dramatic acceleration.
Okay. A topic here of late, you recently announced the issuance of a Series C preferred stock. Is there any color as to what this means?
Why don't I jump in on that one as well?
Yeah, please do, Tom.
Yeah, this is a mechanism to make sure that our shareholders actually have a representative way of expressing their will, pure and simple. Various regulations sometimes make that difficult, especially difficult when, as a retail stock, our stockholders are diverse and they don't always vote their shares. And sometimes the stockholder votes that are cast are not necessarily counted because of regulation. This preferred actually emphasizes the votes that are cast, pro or con, so that the statutory minimums can be reached and the shareholder's decision can actually be executed. It's a mechanism that is essential for getting the shareholder votes to count, as in our upcoming special meeting. Got it.
Okay. Before we sort of wrap up here, I want to come back to something on the financials here. When we spoke at the end of last year, you mentioned that some of the key milestones investors should be looking for in 2022 is to double revenues. Do you feel you remain on track there?
All yours, Tom.
Yeah. When we started the year, we put forth 2x growth as our baseline for the coming year. I still view that as valid. We have up months and down months, but that's our baseline. But we also said that we're doing what we can to bend the curve to more than 2x growth. And I still believe that as well. Although I can't say when bending the curve will happen, I do believe we have the right pieces in place, and I do believe the market is beginning to respond.
All right, perfect. I think we're sort of coming up at the end of the time. Anything else to sort of say before we end the discussion here?
Yeah, just briefly, Robert. So as we talked about during the course of this call, recent trends basically are demonstrating just how big an opportunity this is for SenesTech. As I talked about before, rat infestations are exploding around the country, around the world. It's a problem that has not been capable of being solved for decades, if not centuries. And it's an enormous market opportunity for, what's right now a small company. With our unique focus on reproduction, we have a solution that, really is a game changer for this, perpetual problem. And on top of that, it's sustainable. It ticks that box in terms of, significance in the current world and the current environment. But most importantly, it works. And so we got a product that works. We have a product that fits in with integrated pest management, what the pest management professionals are doing. And it's environmentally sustainable, so we think we have the right product at the right time in history. We're really excited about what the, next weeks, months, and quarters are going to bring.
Perfect. All right, we'll leave it there. Ken, Tom, thank you very much for your time. As always, greatly appreciate it. Again, I just want to remind everyone, if you'd like to arrange a meeting with management, I have not done so already, reach out to me. Again, my email, Blum, B-L-U-M, at lythampartners.com. Or again, visit the website for additional information. Click on that one-on-one meeting request button that's there, and we'll look to get you taken care of. So we hope you all enjoy the conference. Ken, Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.